All right, so hello and welcome. Today's video is going to be talking about how to add some sort of like finishing touches to a coil pot or a vessel in general. So while you're building your pot, you don't really want to be worrying about smoothing it out and having it look perfect, because as you continue to build, it's just going to get messed up again. But also because the more you try to smooth things out, typically you smooth things out with water, the wetter clay is, the more likely it is to collapse. So I haven't used too much water on this. As you can see, it squishes a little bit, but it's not like flopping around the place. So the first thing that we're gonna do is try to sort of smooth out these lumpy walls. And what I'm gonna use for that is a wooden tool that has a flat edge on it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold the pot like this. I'm gonna balance it on my fingers, and I'm just gonna gently, without adding a lot of pressure, I'm gonna gently drag the tool up and down. And this will help sort of smooth out those walls a little bit and drag some of the extra clay. So I'm just gonna go around that. Good. All right, so as you can see, it's still not perfect, but it's a bit better in terms of having straight walls. I could keep going, but for the purpose of this video and time's sake, I'm not gonna get too hung up on it. There's still some wrinkles. I'm gonna show you how to combat those after. The next thing I wanna show you how to do is that sometimes the rim of your pot will not be equal. Like you might have one side that's taller than the other. What I think is helpful for here, and this pot is a little bit wet to be doing this with, so you just have to be extra careful, but you wanna find the low parts of the rim, and I'm just gonna take a needle tool and I'm gonna start just slowly going back and forth. And then in the areas that are a little too tall, I'm gonna hold it as best I can and slowly cut with the needle tool. Once I remove a piece, I'm going to gently scrape it, and then I'm gonna keep going. So I'm holding in areas that are just a little too tall, I'm gonna cut them off. Turn, cut, turn, cut, turning and cutting. Good. And then I can take the flat part of my wooden tool again and I can sort of smooth that out. All right. Now, to actually smooth out any clay boogers and stuff, really the easiest thing to use would be a damp sponge, but at the moment we don't have these. So we're gonna opt for a pretty wide paintbrush, okay? Now there's a little bit of a technique to this, because we don't want the paintbrush to be sopping wet like that. That's actually really not gonna do what we want it to do. Instead, we want it to just be a little bit damp. So I'm just like running the paintbrush on the towel, or excuse me, the tablecloth, and then I'm just gonna run it through my hands. And if it feels not sopping wet, but it's still just damp, that's actually perfect. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start with some moderate pressure, is I'm gonna start swiping the paintbrush back and forth. Now, if you remember from when we first started making pinch pots and we were talking about smoothing, is friction, okay? So if the brush isn't like down here, it's sliding a lot because the clay is wetter down here, I don't need to add any water, okay? But if I were to do the top, I'm really dragging the paintbrush, and you can even see that it's leaving these marks. Then I might want to grab just a little bit of water, and then I can keep smoothing. All right, when you are doing this, you do need to support your walls like how I am right now, as I'm holding the inside of the wall so that way I can smooth out the outside, right? And you just want to keep going back and forth. If you have any big wrinkles, you can use a needle tool to sort of scrape the wrinkles away, or you can use the flat end of a wooden tool to get rid of those, and then finish them off with a paintbrush. A paintbrush is a really great tool for clay because it also helps you smooth areas that are much smaller, which I'll be showing you after once I attach something to this. But This clay is also a little bit floppy. I would have maybe waited till it was a little bit stiffer to go in and finish it, but it is what it is. As long as you're pretty careful while your clay is wet, it's usually not that big of an issue. But yeah, this pot is looking much more glamorous now, and that's just a couple tips for finishing.